Welcome everyone, Costin here on Serious Gaming to talk about Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2, the beta, and the current state of the beta, which is not good. Allow me to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about here. Of course, I'm specifically talking here on the nature of the multiplayer and I guess the skirmish mode, the balance and design problems of the multiplayer, especially in how it's going right now. It isn't good by any definition. Balance is off, design is bad, there are many issues, and I personally foresee this game dying just as swiftly with its multiplayer community as the first one did. For many of the same reasons, actually. Now, I've taken a Tyranid fleet. I have 6 Infestation Devourers. What do these boys have? They have a Tentacle and 4 launch bays. Each 4 launch bays. Let's get started and see how this goes. Actually no, gonna go skirmish against the orcs. The orcs, because they have some fairly cheap ships and they have good troops. They're pretty good at boarding. They're not the best. The Tyranids are the best of any race. They're better than the Space Marines, which is, as far as I'm concerned, ridiculous, but they are. Orcs, however, and Space Marines are pretty close behind, though Tyranids are still going to win that. And it boils down to the troop statistics. If you look at this, statistics-wise, no lightning strike, sure, but they have boarding expertise, 270 angle. Crucially here, it's the deadly troop efficiency. So every boarding action will do, from these cruisers, because we're talking cruisers, 12 damage each boarding action. 12 damage, that's a lot, as you can imagine. Then it gets ridiculous. Because imagine, you can get the crit as well. And then it gets really ridiculous. So this is the AI on the highest difficulty. Now that means that you get more ships, which obviously will be a fairly big benefit to them against me. So more ships, more points, 30% more points than me. That does translate into fairly substantial advantage when you're talking about battles. Now Tyranids have fighters and they have assault boats, brood squadrons, which do assault actions on ships. Now these fighters, since I have 4 launch bays, each unit here is 4 squadrons of fighters. Now 4 squadrons, this cannot be stopped. This, like a single one of my ships probably has the more squadron power than entire fleets can bring to bear. Now, I'm not even exaggerating this, by the way. It's like it's 4 per ship. So that's quite a lot. Now I'm just going to wait until my Tyranids are closer. And then I'm going to launch the assault actions. And this is where things get fucking ridiculous. And understand that I don't want to talk here specifically about the issues that the Tyranids have. People saying that they're too weak, though, really should check this out, though. And there are people saying, oh, they're too weak. No, they are not. I don't care what you believe in. I mean, they specifically fit the role that the developer said they would. But it isn't just an issue of the Tyranids. Let's be clear on this. It's not just, oh, the Tyranids are too strong. No. It's the game has severe design issues, balance issues, you name it. It has it. I'm going to stop my entire fleet over there. So the fighters are in. What they're doing here is taking down turrets. Now, the less turrets, the higher success with my assault boats. Now, keep in mind, those turrets are still tied up, destroying those fighters, so they're not really going to be able to handle that. Now, they did launch a squadron over there. That's really not going to do all that much. My ships have stopped. I'm not trying to do anything clever, by the way, here. Not kiting, nothing like that. Now, you can see what they've done. They've reduced it to 1. Now, the key point here is you have 3 troop levels. Green, yellow, and then red. Per each, if once you lose a troop level, what ends up happening is your ships take some form of damage at the end of the day. That's really the key point over there. Okay, I'm gonna put the feeder tentacle. That's really the only weapon I have. That's going to drain the last remaining troops. These 2 are 2 drifting hulks already. And I am going to send another squadron over there. To deal with that particular one. And I'm going to reactivate my ships. You can use certain skills, but it will to recover drifting hulks, but it will only increase it back to a certain point. You can increase it even further with certain abilities, obviously, like the breeding pool as an example for the Tyranids. But there is a huge cost in all of this. It's not like, oh, I just recovered my ship, I took no damage. No, you suffered damage. Like, look at this. It's lost an engine generators. Those are just damaged, but it's lost. Okay, I'll just look at this one because they. Okay, so it's a drifting hulk. It's minus 20% to skills, weapons, and combustion gauge reload. That's the cost there, as well as obviously the damage. This one's on fire. And I'm gonna send that over there. It's not like I'm doing anything fancy over here, by the way. I haven't even done the close range boarding actions. That one is still alive. I'm going to teleport my flagship to deal with that one. That will deal with them. And that will deal with them. That's the drifting hulk. And keep in mind, the player would not have this many ships. Apart from it, this is a fairly large fleet. The smaller the fleet, the more potent this is. This would work, what I'm doing here would work against battleships exceptionally well. Crazy, very, very well. Oh, I lost the ship. What would I do? Take down the remaining ships of the enemy fleet, of course. Squadrons incoming.
The enemy has seized a strategic area.
Boarding action. Mutiny. And that's about it, right? They still have an escort, and they still have some drifting
25% of strategic points.
It's insane how easy this is to pull off. Now, some factions obviously have more range firepower than the orcs, but you can totally just use your squadrons to screw them over, destroy their turrets.
50%
makes it
of
difficult to
strategic
counter
points.
your assault boats. There we go. And for factions like the Dark Eldar, which Dark Eldar can have stealth on all of their ships. Sure, they have stealth on all of their ships. Good luck winning a melee fight against the Tyranids. Good luck getting close enough to the Tyranids and being able to destroy them. But obviously this is against AI. Let's try against regular players. You'll see how bad it is there. That's, shall we say, beneficial to the AI because, you know, I'm not saying this is like, ooh, the best strategy in the world, or this is totally the way you should play if you want to cheese it as much as you can. There are obviously other strategies. I personally prefer having 4 hive ships as the Tyranids. Not bad, not a bad idea as far as I see it. Alright, let's go. So 1v1 multiplayer. Let's see how this goes against a regular player. There are some factions this works less well, but it's a really cheesy way of doing it. Once I win, I'll continue making the rest of my point, but this is just a ridiculous notion of Tyranids are weak. They have the best assault options bar none. And it's kind of ridiculous that the Tyranids have such powerful fighters in assault craft, because they really shouldn't. It's just that some of their ships have an enormous amount of launch bay capacity. And the problem is, I think that there's no kind of limit with that respect. You know, you can mass as many ships as you want. It will work out. There were limits in the first game. You didn't want to go, you wouldn't have wanted to done something like this in the first game because of the progression system and the fleet system. Sure, with the max points system, you could have chosen to do something similar to this, but I think that not having any kind of limits on fleets is one of the primary reasons this is caused. But there's a lot more than just that, right? There's a lot more. Oh, you can mass 6 ships of the same type, right? And not have to worry about the balanced fleet at all. Okay. Let's get closer. I didn't even use the reload stance there. Alright, I'm gonna stop with this guy. Right, just waiting to get closer.
You have seized a strategic area. The enemy has seized a strategic area.
Alright, let's see. Get closer. To figure out what we're dealing with exactly over here. Alright, targeting the weapons on this baby. Hive ship incoming. Second hive ship. They do have a lot of turrets. Now, this tactic may not go so well in mirror matches against, you know, the Tyranids. You might be... What? What? Did I just... What?
The enemy has seized.
I'm sorry, but
area.
what? Did I just destroy a fucking battleship? Forget what I said. That was a bit insane, wasn't it? Okay. Ooh, the lag. Guess Tyranids against Tyranids are pretty fucking powerful. That's just... Assault actions, I think, probably need a nerf of some kind. Wait, what was that?
The enemy has accumulated 25% of strategic points. You have accumulated 25%
That was for
of strategic
battleships,
points.
I guess. Guess boarding actions work against Tyranids very well as well. It's a bit insane, really.
The enemy has seized a strategic area.
Well,
You have accumulated
that's a
50%
victory for
of
certain.
strategic points.
bunch of Tyranid cruisers. This is, I honestly, like, I already thought this was overpowered, but not this overpowered. Like, I was like, okay, so maybe Tyranids with their deadly troop efficiency would actually handle it, right? Because they've got very good resistance against boarding. No, clearly. Talk about the cheese, holy crap. This is pretty fucking ridiculous when you think about it. Alright, victory. Against another Tyranid player, what the heck? That was interesting. Very interesting. So I genuinely didn't, I'm genuinely surprised because I didn't expect it to be that powerful. But here's the thing, this is not just a Tyranid issue. It's for every faction. It's, oh, what's the cheapest, cheesiest, unbalanced, overpowered fucking way you can play to win this game? And here's why this is the situation. In the first game, the exact same problems existed in the first game. There were certain fleet compositions which were exactly like this, ridiculously fucking overpowered. It was, I guess, masked to a certain degree by two terrible things in the first game that did quite a lot of damage to the multiplayer community as well. The progression system. I'm not talking here because customization. You can have customization for individual ships, though that might create balance problems. I'm wondering, is it really because of balance, or is it because they think, oh, too many ships to customize, players are imbeciles, we can't give them that. Really, most developers seem to hold their player base in not complete and utter contempt like fucking idiots. That's how they view a lot of their player base. Guess what? If you treat your player base as if they actually possess some level of intelligence, they might actually act like that. If you treat them like idiots, they will act like idiots. That's my personal view. As in, if you design a game around those kind of ideas. But bigger than that, right? So it's either that or it's very hard to balance. I don't know which one it is, honestly. It's difficult to say. Could be both, really. Actually, could be a bit of both. They did increase the point size for the fleets. I'm gonna play here a match as the Space Marines. Won't do very well, I might add. Because they do have significant problems. I've gone with some gunships because gunships have an assault action as the Space Marines. It's Untitled Chapter, which is useful. But the bigger point is, in the first game you had the terrible progression system, right? So that created a whole bunch of headaches because there are some fleets which rely on, you know, the bigger ships. There are some fleets which rely on smaller ships. It just ended up with a complete mess of a system that really killed, more than anything else, helped kill the multiplayer in that game. Beyond that, there was a second issue, the mission types. What we have here is typically cruiser clashes in the first game, comparable to the first game, with some victory points, because they don't just want people to dance around the battlefield with no regard whatsoever to, you know, actually having to fight the enemy. Beyond, you know, kiting them. That's why you have limits on squadrons, that kind of stuff, right? So putting those guys in reload, and we will go. But even though they've made those changes, their thought was probably, oh, okay, we'll remove that, and we'll remove the progression system. And also the fleet customization, individual ship customization system. All right, fair enough. The problem is that the inherent issues of balance and bad design were present already in the first game. Augur disruptor gameplay, kiting gameplay, you know, using carriers being overpowered in that one as well, assault actions being incredibly powerful, etc. All of these problems that this game has are many of the same problems that the first game had. And that just leads me to conclude that they don't really know what they're doing here. And I think part of the problem, a major part of the problem, is that they're copying an effective tabletop game. And while tabletop, I have no beef against tabletop, I think they can translate very well into video games, but copying the statistics from a tabletop game within a real-time tactics video game just ends up with a mess of a situation. And that's precisely what they have here. And I don't think they know how to properly fix it, if I'm being quite honest on this issue. I think that their quote-unquote fixes have created plenty of issues.
Show us the enemy!
You have seized a strategic area. The enemy has seized a strategic area.
Necrons.
Engines engaged!
This is gonna be interesting, isn't it?
Where shall we strike?
I do have more fighters, so I should be able to win this engagement. Yeah, so I do have fighter superiority. Because it's one squadron per ship, I have more than that. That's
Enemy
like
in
3
sight.
squadrons. So they'll take out some of the turrets. I'm sending boarding torpedoes. Space Marines have plenty of issues. Their ships are too expensive. They don't have. They do have plenty of boarding actions, but they don't have 270 field angle. Their troops are not good enough for it. Like if you look at here, the Space Marines. Yeah, hold on. I may have. No. It's exceptional, but it's not deadly. So it's a range. Whereas with Tyranids, it's max basically on this list. Like it's 12. So that's something that gives.
Boarding caused critical damage.
Okay, that is a good thing.
Initiate Thunderhawk bombardment.
Boarding successful. Hold course. That is impossible. To where we are needed. At your command.
All right, that should put an end to them.
Give us purpose. At your command.
Hell. Necrons are powerful, he's just not handling the situation well.
Repositioning.
What should he do?
Engines engaged. Where shall we strike? Repositioning.
Well, that actually works.
Our wrath cannot be denied. That is impossible.
Okay.
I am listening. That is impossible.
At your command.
Escort craft destroyed.
Oh, I have lost.
The enemy has accumulated 25% of strategic points.
Our brothers have fallen.
Moving to position.
I may have lost this one, I'm afraid.
Full speed.
I got myself
Hold
a
course.
bit too close to the Necrons.
At your command. Prepare for impact.
The enemy has accumulated 50%
what a
of strategic
shame.
points.
It was close,
Admiral's vessel destroyed.
but even there, like, he could have used his pulse generator to take out my squadrons before I did that much damage. I should have probably just stayed at the distance. That was my bad. Got a bit distracted.
You have
Point though, I mean, some fleets are more powerful than others. Eldar, Corsairs, and Suriani have problems. Space Marines is something that a lot of people say they have problems. Surprisingly, plenty of people are complaining about the Tyranids as well. I could have won that battle, but whatever. Issue is design-wise, balance-wise. Those are the big problems. Assault actions, what I did to that Tyranid Navy with the Tyranid Navy is fucking ridiculous. You shouldn't just be able to destroy the troop value of a battleship. Doesn't matter how powerful your assault actions are. You shouldn't be able to do it in 1 or 2 actions. I mean, yes, I was throwing 4 squadrons of boarding craft, worth of boarding craft at that. Sure, I understand that. But still, it's fucking ridiculous. It's insane. It's stupid. It's imbalanced as hell. It applies to many other things. Ion cannons, rail guns, Necron explosions, so on and so forth. It's just like trying to out-cheese each other as a player. And all of these problems, many of these issues, like with the fleets of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1, they existed there as well. Eldar being bad, being too expensive, Space Marines being too expensive and with their ships and bad, so on and so forth. It applied already in the first game. They didn't fix the balance problems of the first game. Let alone the fact that they added these factions, you know, the Merchant Fleet, the Necrons, the Tyranids, the Drukhari, the Craft World Eldar, the Mechanicus. That doesn't help balance. It's considerably worse, and it's not gonna make for a good multiplayer experience. It's boring. I mean, it genuinely is not fun to play. Like, after, sure, I've spent 20 hours, but I've had to drag myself for 20 hours, and it's my quote-unquote job to do so. Would I play this for fun for 20 hours? Hell, fuck no. I wouldn't have. But I have experimented with the fleets, and it's the same fucking thing with every faction. For the Imperials, battleship frenzy. For the Space Marines, battle barges. For the Mechanicus, Arc Mechanicus, battleships. For Chaos, battleships. For Corsair Eldar, 2 Voidstalkers, though mind you, they have plenty of problems. For Suriani, they don't have battleships, so you have problems with the Suriani. Drukhari, though, 4 Failing Moons, battleships. Orcs, Mega Rocks, battleship. Dreadnought, battleship. Do you want a battleship with your battleship? The Necrons, Cairn, battleship and cruiser. Tyranids, either the carrier mega fleet or more battleships. Does this seem like a well-designed, well-balanced game to you if this is what you're having to do? The fact that weaker ships are completely fucking useless, that you wouldn't want to bother with them to the first place in the fleet composition is pretty bad. There's gotta be some form of limits or some reason, really good reason to bring smaller ships. Yes, they have scanners. Yes, they have stealth. Those things are useful. But are we really gonna bother with a fleet of light cruisers? I've seen some people do very clever stuff with their fleets. Some people that are good at micro and all that try and, you know, make clever compositions. But does it matter? Like, if you're just gonna be up against the Zerg wall, if you're gonna be against the brute force approach, and if 9 out of 10 situations the brute force approach is gonna kick your fucking hide, would you do something clever in terms of your fleet composition, or would you go with the brawl approach, the brute force approach? And hell, even with the brute force approach, there's still so many balance and design issues that go into these fleets. What would I propose as a solution? Well, I think that certain fleets do certainly need some help. Space Marines in particular, the Corsair and Eldar fleets, maybe damage reduction, survivability improvement, cost reduction significantly for them, and maybe the Necrons as well. The Necrons are also very powerful, especially with their Star Pulse generator, which can make you immune against the bullshit tactics that I used against the Tyranids, because you can use the Star Pulse generator to destroy enemy squadrons. But I think the bigger problem is design-wise. They're trying to take a tabletop game and put it into a real-time strategy game. And it doesn't translate very well. By the way, the AI has the exact same issues in the first game. It splits the fleet apart. It doesn't handle tactics in any way in an intelligent manner. That's clear as day. So it's easy to dance circles around them. It just feels, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a really engaging experience to play in either skirmish or multiplayer. It really doesn't. Campaign-wise, that's a different affair, of course. You know, there's the epic moments, music, design. I mean, the prologue, that was a really good Warhammer moment, what they did there with the cinematics, the flow, I guess, and the latter part of the battle, or the final part of the battle. Not the early part is terrible. But the final part, yeah, that was pretty damn awesome, especially with the phalanx. But there's so many issues. Like, I think that one of the problems is the point system. Another problem is they removed any limits. Like the first game had limits that meant you actually had to have some diversity in your fleet. You can't just have a fleet of battleships. You can in this one. You had to have some diversity. It was actually a reasonable enough strategy in the first game, not this one, to actually have a fleet of no battleships on high level play, because you may have wanted the points and you may have felt that you would gain more from having more ships as opposed to fewer ships. Here, that still applies to a certain extent here, say the orcs for instance, but it just generally bigger is better. And that's probably a problem, a major problem. What's the point of escorts if they're generally throwaways, really? I mean, when you look at how an actual fleet would fight, well, obviously, you know, we're talking here naval combat on Earth, but how a fleet fights, since this is taking away from a lot of that, how a fleet fights, how a fleet positions, they have smaller ships to basically protect the bigger ones, which are very difficult to replace, but you don't have to care about that. That's a bad strategy to actually use. I mean, of course, you did have. It's like what this is like 17th century ships of the line style gameplay. It just doesn't translate very well into a video game, especially for any kind of competitive multiplayer. Another problem is you select your fleet before the battle, whereas you could, in the first game, you could select, okay, so I'm against this opponent, right? He is of this race. I make the decision moment, which ships do I bring? You don't have that thing here. You have to decide before, and so what you're gonna do as a player is you're going to try and pick a fleet composition to let you deal in most situations until you come across that race or that particular combination, race combination and fleet combination that will just destroy yours. It ain't fun when 70, even higher than that, but at least 70% of the battle is decided purely on fleet composition alone, and your skill has nothing to do with it. That ain't a good fucking design. That ain't good design for a game like this. It really isn't. It's not good design when you can lose an entire fleet in seconds. I'm serious, I'm not kidding here. Seconds, you can lose an entire fleet in this game. It's not good design when people can use ridiculously cheesy comps, and not even can, but have to use ridiculously cheesy comps in order to win, because their opponents are also doing the exact same thing. I'm just not seeing how this game will have an active and healthy multiplayer community. I really don't. That's the bigger problem, obviously, for them. Me, personally, I mean, for all I've said, I'm disappointed in this. I would have hoped that they would have learned, which they clearly didn't. I'm also disappointed in that the fleets are overall small and the individual ships are also small. This is Warhammer. Big. You want to understand something? These ships are not quite, the battleships are not quite on the same level of superstar destroyers, but they come very damn close. You want to see how a game does ship sizes, fleet sizes very well. Empire War, Star Wars Empire at War. What, it's a decade old. It handles that. When you see a Super Star Destroyer, that's a Super Star Destroyer there. Or a Star Destroyer, or a Corvette. The sizes are right. These ships are fucking tiny. Also, performance issues, stability issues all over the place. I get it, it's a beta, but many of these problems plagued the first game. And they delayed this game. So, I mean, I don't mind Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1 version 2.0, which is what this effectively is. I don't mind spending money for that. I don't mind spending my time with that if I'm going to have a good Warhammer campaign experience, which is not that common these days. It's not common in gaming, especially since Relic screwed it up with Dawn of War 3. It's not common in gaming to have that. So I'll take that. But I also kind of want more than just that. I mean, I think that's a reasonable expectation that a lot of people have with this game, and you're just gonna have a pretty bad multiplayer experience. As for skirmish, I don't know, I've never been a big fan of skirmish in the first place, but it just feels cheap. It feels winning cheaply. Sure, you can handicap yourself if you so desire, but it's not fun just handicapping yourself, say in multiplayer as a pretty good point, and then just try and win a battle with maximum effort, whereas your opponent is just throwing his ships across from one side of the battlefield to another. I think that's the worst part. It's boring. There's no thinking required, no strategizing, no tactics. It's not a good game from that perspective. It can offer other things, I imagine. I hope it does, for its own sake. If they screw up the campaign, well, I would hope they don't. After playing the prologue, which is the tutorial, I don't think they will, but you never know. If they screw up the campaign, well, then this game is certainly not worth it. That's really the only thing I can say good about it. It might have a good campaign at the end of the day, or it might not. It might blow up in everyone's face. Costin here on Serious Gaming, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for more. I guess I'll wait for the second phase of the beta, because I am most certainly done with this one.